The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and silence, the kind that felt heavier than words. Michael walked slowly, his chest tight, his mind fighting what he already knew. A nurse avoided his eyes, her silence sharper than any sentence. He pushed open the door, his father's frail frame swallowed by white sheets. Machines beeped faintly, their rhythm fragile, as if even they feared breaking him. Michael whispered, "Dad, I'm here." His father's eyes opened, glassy, but holding love and pain. "Son," he breathed, a voice cracked with age and weakness. Michael clenched his fists, desperate to hold the moment together. The doctor stepped forward, his words final. "I'm sorry. There's nothing more we can do." Michael's world shattered in one sentence. He staggered, gripping the bed rail, feeling it cold and merciless. His father reached a trembling hand, and Michael took it, his tears falling, hot, unstoppable. In that silence, grief screamed louder than any voice. Michael sat by the bed, his eyes fixed on his father's shallow breathing. The room was too quiet, every second stretching like eternity. "Dad," Michael whispered, "do you remember the fishing trips?" His father's lips twitched, a faint smile flickering across his frail face. "You always caught the big ones," he murmured. Michael laughed softly through tears, clinging to the fragile moment. The weight of unspoken words pressed heavy, regret crawling into his chest. "I learned to pride." He wanted to say everything at once, but feared the words might break his father. Time was cruel, ticking away in silence. Michael shifted, his heart torn between the present and memories. He saw himself as a boy, running to his father, proud of every lesson. The man who once lifted him high was now fragile, bound to wires and silence. "I never thanked you," Michael whispered, his voice heavy. His father blinked slowly, eyes wet, as though words no longer mattered. Their bond stretched beyond speech, stitched together by years of love and sacrifice. Michael's chest ached with guilt, but he held his father's hand tighter, unwilling to let go of the strength that once guided him. The machines hummed, each beep louder than his heartbeat. Michael wanted to scream, to fight the reality pressing in. "You were my hero," he whispered, his voice breaking. His father's frail hand pressed weakly against his, a silent acknowledgement. Michael remembered birthdays, laughter, lessons in patience, all flooding back like waves crashing. He longed for one more day, one more chance to hear his father's voice strong again. Instead, all he had was this fading echo. The weight of goodbye began pressing into his chest, merciless, unrelenting. Michael leaned closer, his forehead almost touching his father's. "I'm not ready to lose you," he said, his words shivering in the heavy air. His father's chest rose faintly, lips trembling, trying to speak but too weak. Michael filled the silence with his own truth. "Everything I am is because of you." The words cracked under the pressure of grief. His tears fell onto the sheets, soaking into the thin fabric. In that moment, Michael felt both a child and a man, holding on to the last fragments of his father's strength. Michael sat in the hospital chair, eyes red and burning from tears, but his thoughts drifted backward. He remembered being 8 years old, sitting on a wooden dock beside his father, their fishing poles cast into still waters. The sun was warm, the world quiet, and his father's voice calm, guiding him with patience. "Don't rush, son," his father said back then, "life rewards patience." Those words echoed now, painfully, in the sterile hospital room. Michael whispered, "You gave me every lesson that shaped me, Dad." His father, weak and tired, blinked slowly, as if to say he remembered too. Michael smiled faintly, grief tangled with gratitude. The memory pressed against the present, reminding him that the man who once taught him patience was now slipping away. That thought filled Michael's chest with a bittersweet ache, leaving him desperate to hold on to every remaining second. Michael's mind wandered deeper, the weight of the hospital walls fading. He saw himself at 16, standing on a baseball field, nervous and afraid of failing. His father, strong then, stood by the fence, cheering with all his heart. "You've got this, son," he shouted, voice filled with pride. That day Michael hit his first home run, not because of skill, but because his father's belief carried him. Tears blurred Michael's eyes as he whispered now, "You always believed in me, even when I didn't." His father's lips moved faintly, a fragile smile breaking through the pain. That memory became an anchor, showing Michael the depth of love that never wavered. He realized his father's strength had always been his foundation, and losing him now felt like losing the ground beneath his feet. Michael closed his eyes, letting another memory wash over him. He was 22, filled with anger after failing his first job interview, ready to give up. His father sat with him on the porch, the night air cool, stars bright above. "Failure isn't the end," his father said. "It's the teacher you don't want but need." That wisdom stayed buried until now, when Michael realized how deeply those words had shaped him. He opened his eyes in the hospital, whispering, "You never let me fall without teaching me to rise." His father's frail hand twitched, as if reaching for his son's. The truth of their bond was undeniable, every memory tied together by love. Michael gripped his father's hand tighter, wishing he could repay every lesson, every sacrifice, in one impossible moment of gratitude. Michael leaned forward, the memories rushing too fast, too sharp. He remembered childhood birthdays, his father laughing as he carried a homemade cake, candles glowing, pride in every detail. "You made me feel like I mattered," Michael whispered, his voice trembling. His father's eyes shimmered with faint recognition, lips curling into the ghost of a smile. Michael's chest tightened, realizing that the man who once gave everything now had nothing left to give but presence. That presence alone still filled the room, heavy and sacred. Michael lowered his head, his tears soaking into the bedsheets. "You gave me joy even when you had little," he whispered, his heart breaking. Every moment was slipping, but his gratitude was unshakable. The weight of love pressed heavily, reminding him how deeply his life was shaped by this man's devotion. The room grew heavier, silence thick as Michael's memories clashed with reality. He saw his father teaching him to drive at 18, patient voice steady despite Michael's mistakes. "Trust yourself," his father had said, hands calm on the wheel. That lesson returned now, cruel in its timing. Michael whispered, "You trusted me before I ever trusted myself." His father blinked slowly, faint recognition crossing his tired face. Michael swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to trust myself without you." The words filled the space, sharp as knives, yet tender with love. Michael pressed his forehead against his father's hand, refusing to let go. He understood now that every memory was not just a lesson, but a gift, and those gifts were the only strength he had left to carry forward. Michael stared at the monitors, each beep slicing through the silence like a cruel reminder of time slipping away. His father's chest rose and fell shallowly, every breath a fragile battle. Michael whispered, "I can't lose you now," his voice cracking with desperation. He wanted to believe his strength could keep his father alive, but helplessness consumed him. The nurse entered quietly, adjusting the IV, her eyes heavy with sympathy she could not voice. Michael felt guilt claw at him. He thought of the years he was too busy to visit, the calls unanswered, the moments lost. His heart pounded as regret swelled, pressing into his ribs like a cage. "I should have been here more, Dad," he murmured, the confession spilling out like a wound tearing open. His father blinked faintly, too weak to reply, but his gaze carried forgiveness Michael wasn't ready to accept. Michael leaned back in the chair, exhaustion etched into his face. He thought of the bills stacking at home, the weight of responsibilities pressing harder than ever. His father's illness had stripped away every layer of security. "I can't do this alone," Michael admitted softly, his words trembling in the quiet. He hated how small his voice sounded, how weak. His father stirred faintly, eyes glistening though his body had no strength to move. Michael clutched his hair in both hands, his chest burning with helplessness. "You were always the one who carried us, Dad," he whispered, choking on tears. The truth was sharp. He didn't feel ready to carry anyone. Fear wrapped around him like chains, making every breath heavy. The sight of his father so frail forced Michael to confront not just grief, but the terrifying reality of stepping into his father's shoes. The walls seemed to close in, their sterile white overwhelming. Michael stood suddenly, pacing the room, anger breaking through his grief. "Why does it have to be you?" he shouted softly, not wanting to disturb his father, yet unable to contain the fury. His voice echoed against the still air, raw with emotion. He punched his fist lightly against the wall, frustration spilling into motion. His father stirred, his voice barely audible. "Don't waste your strength on anger." Michael froze, his chest heaving, shame and sorrow crashing into him at once. He turned back, tears streaking his face, and whispered, "I just don't know how to let you go." His father's weak hand trembled, reaching just slightly, as if reminding him that love remained even in the silence of despair. Michael sank back into the chair, his breath uneven. His memories collided with the present, and guilt rose sharper than ever. He thought of the arguments they had, the harsh words exchanged in his 20s, when pride blinded him. "I wasted so much time fighting you," he whispered, his voice trembling with regret. His father's eyes opened faintly, a flicker of pain mixed with quiet forgiveness. Michael's chest tightened, his stomach twisting with the thought that apologies might come too late. He reached for his father's hand, clutching it tightly, his tears dripping onto the sheets. "I should have listened more," he admitted, each word breaking him further. His father's weak squeeze was enough to shatter Michael, reminding him that love had always been stronger than conflict. The moment felt like both punishment and mercy, tearing him open and holding him together all at once. The night grew deeper, shadows thick across the hospital floor. Michael rested his forehead on his father's hand, words spilling like confessions he could no longer contain. "I thought I had more time," he whispered, grief dragging each syllable. His father exhaled slowly, chest rising with effort, his breath fragile but steady. Michael's tears dampened the sheets as he continued, "I should have cherished every moment, but I didn't." The silence that followed was unbearable, pressing heavy on his chest. He wanted a miracle, something to steal more time, but reality refused. His father's fingers twitched faintly, and Michael clung tighter, refusing to let go. The weight of inevitability pressed against him, and in that moment, he realized this was not just his father's battle, it was his. The fight to accept, to endure, to carry forward the lessons that now felt like lifelines. Michael sat silently, listening to the machine's hum, when his father's eyes opened with sudden clarity. His voice, weak yet sharp, whispered, "There's something you must know." Michael leaned closer, heart racing. "What is it, Dad?" His father's trembling breath carried weight heavier than his frailty. "I kept a secret from you," he murmured. Michael's chest tightened, fear and confusion colliding. The thought of hidden truths at this moment felt unbearable. "What secret?" Michael asked, voice cracking. His father's eyes flickered, a storm behind the glass. "Your life? It wasn't built the way you think." Michael's throat closed, unable to form words. Every second of silence felt like glass shattering inside his chest. The room no longer felt safe, it felt like the ground beneath him was breaking open, threatening to swallow him whole. His father's lips trembled, forcing out each word like it cut him from within. "The house you grew up in wasn't ours alone. I borrowed everything, every comfort, from a man I never told you about." Michael froze, his breath stolen. "What do you mean?" His father coughed, chest shaking with weakness. "A friend years ago gave me everything, and I lived with the weight of owing him. I hid it from you because I wanted you to believe I provided." Michael's heart twisted, the truth unraveling everything he had known. His memories, once warm, now felt laced with betrayal and sacrifice. He gripped his father's hand, anger and love battling inside him. "Why would you hide this?" Michael demanded, his voice breaking with grief. His father's eyes watered, shame mixing with love. "Because I wanted to be your hero." Michael's thoughts spiraled, his chest burning as the words replayed. His father's pride had built their lives on borrowed ground. All those years, Michael whispered, voice trembling, you carried this lie alone. His father's eyes glistened. I carried it for you, so you wouldn't grow with shame. Michael shook his head, tears running freely. The boy in him crushed under the weight of this revelation. He wanted to scream, to collapse, to beg for a different truth. Instead, he whispered, I don't know how to forgive this. His father's hand trembled weakly, trying to reach his. You don't have to forgive me now. Just know I loved you in every sacrifice. Michael's heart ached, torn open by both pain and the desperate desire to cling to the man who had shaped him. Michael stood, unable to sit in the weight of the truth. He paced the room, his fists clenched, every breath jagged. You should have trusted me, he said, anger spilling into the air. His father's weak voice carried across the silence. I wanted you to believe in me, even if it meant carrying the burden alone. Michael's chest heaved, his tears hot with betrayal. You were already my hero, Dad. You didn't need lies. His father closed his eyes, a tear sliding down his fragile cheek. I only wanted you to feel safe. The words broke Michael, the anger colliding with the unshakable truth that love had been the root of even the lie. He leaned against the wall, his body trembling, torn between fury and compassion. The truth had wounded him, but it also revealed the depth of his father's sacrifice. Michael returned to the bedside, his anger softening as he saw his father's frailty. He knelt, clutching the trembling hand again. You should have let me carry it with you, he whispered, his voice breaking. His father's lips curved into the faintest smile, fragile but filled with love. It was never your weight to carry, he murmured. Michael's chest tightened as he realized the sacrifice had not been about pride, but about love. He lowered his forehead to his father's hand, his tears spilling freely. Even with the truth, you're still my father, Michael admitted, his voice raw. His father closed his eyes, relief softening his weary face. In that moment, Michael understood that the revelation, though painful, was another gift, proof of the endless lengths his father would go to protect him. Michael wiped his eyes and pulled a small wooden box from his bag, his hands trembling as he set it on the nightstand. Dad, I've been working on this for weeks, he whispered, his voice breaking. His father turned his head slowly, curiosity in his dim eyes. Michael opened the box, revealing photographs, letters, and mementos from their life together. I wanted to give you back the memories you gave me, Michael said, tears streaming. He lifted the first photo, a fishing trip long ago, his father's smile wide and strong. This is us, Dad, he whispered, pressing the photo into his father's frail hand. His father's lips trembled into the faintest smile, eyes wet. Michael's chest burned, every second screaming with urgency. This is my final gift to you. His father's hand shook, gripping the photo as though it were life itself. Michael pulled out another photograph, one of his father cheering from the stands at his baseball game. You never missed a game, he whispered, voice trembling with gratitude. His father's eyes glistened, and his lips quivered as he tried to speak but failed. Michael continued, you were always there, no matter how tired or busy. He held the photo against his father's chest, as if to place the memory close to his heart. A faint tear slid from his father's eye, catching the glow of the lamp. Michael's chest ached as the room filled with the weight of both love and loss. He whispered, I want you to know I remember everything, Dad. Every sacrifice, every smile. His father's hand twitched weakly, fingers brushing the photograph, holding on to the past as if it were the last anchor keeping him alive. Michael lifted a folded letter, one he had written when he was a boy, still smudged with ink and crooked words. I found this in the attic, he said, his voice breaking. He read aloud the childish lines. Dad, you are my hero. His voice cracked mid-sentence, grief and love colliding. His father's lips trembled, his chest rising with fragile emotion. Michael pressed the letter into his father's hand, his tears dripping onto the paper. Even back then, I knew what you meant to me, he whispered. His father closed his eyes, a faint smile crossing his face as though the memory returned in full. Michael felt his knees weaken under the crushing weight of love and loss. "I never stopped meaning it, Dad," he said, his voice trembling. The room was filled with the sound of his tears against paper, a rhythm of heartbreak and devotion. Michael placed an old pocket watch into his father's hand, the one his father had given him on his 18th birthday. "You told me this would remind me of time's value," Michael whispered, his voice raw. "But time feels so cruel now." His father's fingers weakly closed around the watch, the sound of its ticking filling the silence. Michael sobbed quietly, holding his father's hand in both of his, desperate to keep it steady. "You gave me every moment you could," Michael said, "and I wasted too many." His father forced his eyes open, a faint glimmer of peace within them. Michael kissed his father's knuckles, the metal of the watch cold against his lips. "This was yours first," he whispered, "and now it ends with you." The symbolism crushed him, but it was also the only way he knew to honor the man he loved. Michael placed the final item from the box, a family photograph, onto his father's chest. It was worn, corners bent, filled with laughter frozen in time. "This is everything we are, Dad," Michael whispered, his voice breaking into sobs. His father's trembling hand rested on the photograph, his lips forming a fragile smile. Michael's tears streamed freely, his forehead pressing against his father's hand again. "This is my gift to you," he whispered, "a reminder that your love was never wasted." His father's chest rose with one more deep breath, his eyes locking onto Michael's. "Thank you," he whispered, the words faint but clear. Michael broke, clutching his father's hand, his cries muffled into the silence of the room. In that moment, the gift was complete, not objects in a box, but love passed from father to son, eternal, unbreakable. The room was heavy with silence, but for the first time that night, Michael felt a strange peace settle over him. His father's eyes, though weary, carried a softness that spoke louder than words. Michael whispered, "You don't need to fight anymore." His voice cracked but steadied as he continued, "I'll carry everything you gave me." His father blinked slowly, a faint acknowledgement that eased the storm in Michael's chest. He realized now that the gift had not been about objects, but about love that transcended time. Michael placed his hand over his father's, his tears slowing as acceptance replaced rage. "You taught me to live, Dad," he whispered. "Even now you're teaching me how to say goodbye." In that moment, grief and peace intertwined, wrapping around Michael like two threads of the same cloth. Michael leaned closer, speaking softly as if the words were prayers. "I forgive the secrets, Dad," he said, his throat tight, "because love was always at the center." His father's lips curved into the faintest smile, his eyes glistening with fragile relief. Michael let his tears fall freely, no longer ashamed of their weight. He thought of the years he had wasted in silence, the calls unanswered, but in this moment, none of it mattered. Forgiveness filled the space like sunlight breaking through clouds. "You gave me all you could," Michael whispered, "and that was enough." His father's breathing steadied for a moment, fragile but calm, as if the confession had lightened the burden he carried. For Michael, the moment felt like release, a bridge from grief to acceptance. Michael took a shaky breath, pulling another photo from the box, this time of the entire family gathered around a small birthday cake. "We didn't have much," he whispered, "but you always gave us joy." His father's eyes softened, his weak hand twitching toward the picture. Michael held it gently against his chest. "I want you to know I saw it, Dad. I saw every effort, every sacrifice, every moment you made us feel whole." His voice faltered as his chest tightened, but the truth poured out. "Even when you had nothing, you gave me everything." His father closed his eyes, his face serene, as though the words were all he needed to hear. Michael pressed the photo against his father's heart, realizing that love itself was the legacy left behind. The hours stretched, but Michael no longer feared the silence. He whispered, stories from his childhood, each one like a soft thread weaving them together. "Remember the time we fixed the old car?" he said with a shaky laugh. You told me even broken things could be mended." His father's lips curved faintly, a shadow of the old smile that once lit every room. Michael felt his chest tighten, but this time, not with dread. It was gratitude. "You showed me that strength wasn't about being unbreakable," he whispered, "but about standing again after you fall." His father exhaled slowly, fragile but steady, his hand twitching in response. Michael leaned close, pressing his forehead against his father's hand. "Even now you're still mending me," he whispered. Michael realized the fight was no longer about holding on, but about letting go with love. His father's breaths were shallow, but his face peaceful, free of strain. Michael whispered, "You can rest now, Dad. I'll be okay." The words ached as they left him, but he knew they were true. For the first time, he believed he could carry his father's lessons into tomorrow. His father's lips trembled as if forming one last word, though none came. Michael held his hand firmly, tears sliding quietly down his face. "I'll make you proud," he promised. The silence that followed was not heavy, but sacred, wrapping the room in bittersweet calm. It was the stillness of closure, where grief and love coexisted in fragile harmony. The hospital room was silent, except for the faint hum of the machines. Michael held his father's hand, feeling the pulse weaken with each passing second. His tears had slowed, replaced by quiet acceptance. "I'm here, Dad," he whispered, voice trembling but steady. His father's eyes fluttered, a faint glimmer of peace within them. Michael leaned close, pressing his forehead against the hand he never wanted to release. Love filled the silence, heavy and sacred, wrapping them both in its final embrace. Michael felt his father's grip falter, the strength that had once carried him now fading like a final whisper. "You don't have to fight anymore," Michael said softly, his voice breaking. His father's lips curved into the faintest smile before his eyes closed slowly. Michael's chest ached, but he leaned close and whispered, "I'll keep your lessons alive." The moment hung in the air, still and timeless, as if the world paused to honor their final exchange. The monitor's steady rhythm slowed until it faded into silence. Michael's breath caught as reality sank in. His father had slipped away, leaving only stillness. Tears streamed, but his sobs were quiet, almost reverent. He kissed his father's hand gently, letting it rest on the sheets. "Goodbye, Dad," he whispered, his words trembling. The room felt both broken and whole, grief and love blending into one final truth. Michael sat back in the chair, drained but strangely calm. He looked at the wooden box filled with photos and letters, the final gift he had given. The objects seemed alive now, carrying their bond forward. He whispered, "This isn't the end, Dad. You'll always be with me." His tears fell silently, but his heart felt steadier, anchored by the love that filled every memory. In the stillness, Michael understood his father's final lesson. That love outlasts everything, even death. As dawn's first light crept through the blinds, Michael rose and stood over his father, his heart heavy yet full. He placed his hand gently on his father's chest, whispering, "I'll make you proud." The room glowed faintly with the morning sun, washing over the silence with warmth. Michael turned, carrying the wooden box close to his chest. With each step, he felt his father walking beside him, unseen but eternal. The goodbye was final, but the love was endless.